The badge hit the bottom of the trash can with a sound too small for what it meant. Colonel Daniels didn't even look at her when he dropped it. Specialist Maya Henson stood frozen in front of his desk, her backpack still on her shoulders, dust from a 20-hour flight still clinging to her boots, watching 11 years of trust disappear into a wire basket stamped confidential. She had flown halfway across the world to deliver a warning. Now she was being told she'd imagined it. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Maya had rehearsed this moment for 14 hours on the plane. Not the part where they thanked her. The part where she explained herself clearly enough that no one could doubt her. She had the files. She had the timestamps. She had watched, with her own eyes, a transmission that didn't match anything in the official record. A discrepancy buried so deep most analysts would have scrolled past it without blinking. But Maya wasn't most analysts. She noticed things. It was the reason she'd been pulled from her unit in the first place, flown stateside on radio silence, told to report directly to the Pentagon and speak to no one. She hadn't expected to be the one accused of lying. "You're telling me," Colonel Daniels said, his voice low and clipped, the kind of voice that had silenced rooms for 20 years, "that you flew here, past 2 separate chains of command, because you think you found something your superiors missed." "I know what I saw, sir." "You know what you think you saw?" Behind him, General Harrison stood like a stone pillar, arms folded, his face giving away nothing. The flag beside him barely moved, though the air conditioning hummed steadily through the vents. Outside the window, Washington sprawled in cold midday light. Cars threading the Pentagon's outer ring, oblivious to the storm building 3 floors up. None of them knew that the next 90 minutes would decide whether 31 soldiers came home. Maya's hands wanted to tremble. She didn't let them. She thought of her father, a staff sergeant who used to tell her that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing the harder truth over the easier silence. She thought of the team she'd left in the field, men and women who trusted that someone back home would actually read the data they risked their lives to gather. And she thought, briefly and bitterly, that maybe trust was a luxury nobody above the rank of colonel could afford anymore. "Badge and credentials," Daniels said. Effective immediately. She unclipped it without a word. Some part of her, small, stubborn, still 17 and watching her father pin on his own insignia, refused to let her hands shake as she set it on the desk. He didn't even pick it up. He simply pushed it into the trash can himself, the metal-on-metal clatter swallowed instantly by the room's heavy silence. She thought she'd never be allowed to speak in that building again. She was wrong. The phone on the desk rang. Not Daniel's personal extension, the secure line, the one with a red light that only blinked when someone several pay grades above a colonel needed to talk. General Harrison's eyes flicked toward it first. Daniels hesitated half a second too long before answering. And in that half second, something shifted in the room, like the air pressure changes before a storm finally breaks. "Colonel Daniels." Maya watched his face. She had spent 11 years learning to read faces under pressure. It was the one skill nobody could train out of her. She watched the certainty in his jaw begin to erode, watched his eyes move from the floor to her, then back to the floor, then, almost involuntarily, to the trash can. "Yes, sir," he said. She's still here." A long pause. The kind that makes a room hold its breath without meaning to. Somewhere down the hall, a printer hummed. A phone rang unanswered at another desk. The city outside kept moving, indifferent, while inside this one office, an entire chain of command quietly recalculated who had been right. "Understood, sir. I'll brief her myself." He set the receiver down like it weighed more than it had 3 minutes earlier. "That," he said slowly, "was Cyber Command. They cross-referenced your anomaly against a satellite feed from 0600 this morning." He paused, and for the first time, something like respect, uneasy, reluctant, but real, crossed his face. "You were right. There's a unit out there that doesn't know they've been compromised." The room didn't erupt into noise. It went the other way, utterly, completely still, the kind of silence that comes when the stakes finally become real to everyone in the room at once. Then Harrison moved first, stepping forward, bending down, and lifting the badge from the trash can himself. He didn't hand it back right away. He held it for a moment, turning it once in the light, as if reminding himself, and the room, what it was actually worth. This is the moment worth sitting with. A young soldier punished not for being wrong, but for being inconveniently right too soon. It's easy, in hindsight, to call her brave. It's harder to ask how many people in that room had already decided to silence her before they'd even checked the facts. Being right doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it isolates you first. Harrison placed the badge back in her palm. "Get her a secure line," he said. "Now we move." What followed was coordination at full speed. Analysts pulled mid-lunch, satellites repositioned, a quiet, focused storm of people who, an hour earlier, hadn't known her name, now building an extraction plan around words she had spoken. 31 soldiers came home 3 days later, unaware that their return had started with one specialist refusing to let her voice be thrown away with her badge. Because the truth doesn't vanish when it's dismissed. It waits, patient and unbothered, until the moment someone finally has no choice but to listen. And somewhere in that office, in a trash can still standing by a mahogany desk, sat the quiet reminder that sometimes the people we're quickest to doubt are the ones who end up saving us. If this story moved you, tell me where in the world you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because every week, we bring you stories of courage that remind us why the truth is always worth the wait.